We're going to the moon. And I don't mean that in a weird cryptocurrency kind of way. I mean quite literally. Us plus moon equals our doing, because it exists in One Piece. In fact, many of them exist. And as soon as our curious monkey man finds out, then Moon Piece will truly begin. Hello and welcome to the Grand Line Review, your source for everything One Piece. My name is Liam, and legit question, would you go to space if you could? I feel like I probably wouldn't, because that would involve going outside. Like outside of our planet, which is very outside. With that said, I'm happy to live vicariously through fictional pirates, particularly since space travel in One Piece is not only achievable, but dare I even say easily achievable. I mean, I suppose I've said it now. How daring of me. Almost as daring as handsome Mike Blobbygob and stupid kid 915 Pants, each of whom did the amazing thing of pressing the subscribe button for the Grand Line Review, which will result in consistent injections of One Piece culture being administered directly into your YouTube feed. And if you'd like to be our next subscriber of the day, then hit the button and please do say hi in the comments below if you are a new member of the Grand Fleet. Welcome. Alright, so why do we care about the moon all of a sudden? Well, it's not exactly sudden. This whole moon business is a very slow burn feature of One Piece, and at this point, it's like plonking some story into a slow cooker, leaving it for say 25 years, and coming back to discover a tasty moon feast. However, during that 25 years, the scent of slowly cooking moon was very much present in the background of your life. Pretty much every meta element of One Piece has a connection to either the sun or the moon. This is something that can be plainly seen in our antagonist, Monkey D. Luffy. A child who grew up on Dawn Island, captains a ship named the Thousand Sunny, is believed by a jaguar to be the one to bring about the dawn of the world, and who has been directly referenced to the sun god. He brings light to the darkness of the world and other wanky metaphors like that. Meanwhile, each civilization that housed a road poneglyph also follows this sun-moon trend. The Minks are an obvious example because they have a physical transformation triggered by a full moon. Meanwhile, Wano is a very moon-based society, as can be seen with both the Kozuki and Amatsuki family crests, as well as their names actually. Both of them quite literally contain the kanji for moon in their names. And on the other side of things, the Fishman Society also once held a road poneglyph, but their connection is to the sun, with the whole wanting to go up to the surface and living under it thing. And in fact, their entire society is fueled by the sunlight tree Eve. So TLDR, they like light and they want more of it. But moon symbology can be found almost everywhere we look, be it the sky people who all came to the One Piece world from the moon, the model on Ohara which showed the One Piece planet having multi-moons, and the fact that, and this is a spoiler so skip to this time if you don't want it, but the fact that there is an entire race named Lunarians, and the fact that you can even see the middle initial D as a half moon. But the importance of the moon was flagged far before any of this was known. In fact, the moon has always been at the forefront of Oda's mind, but you probably missed it. Because here is something pretty wild. In the early days of One Piece, by which I mean the first 300 chapters or so, you can track the entire timeline of events simply based on the moon. During this time, Oda paid meticulous attention to the state of the moon, often using it to set key scenes, and sometimes naming entire chapters after it, with examples of such chapters being 28, 107, and 152, named Crescent Moon, Moonlight, and Tombstones and Full Moon respectively. In fact, in the early days, this, I would go so far as to say moon obsession, would govern certain in-world decisions. Like Captain Kuro, for example. He based his entire plan around the appearance of a crescent moon, which allegedly brings out the beast within. And this moon is shown no less than 6 times in his incredibly short flashback. Again, I should say that Oda did abandon his moon consistency though. After Water 7, the story can no longer be tracked using the lunar cycle. However, the moon has very recently become a focal point again during our 4 Emperors saga. A lot of this does admittedly have to do with focusing on 2 societies with deep moonish connections, again being Wano and the Mink tribe. And I should also say that in a series as long and varied as One Piece, connections like this can be made with just about anything. It's quite easy to make up any old thing. In fact, let's make something up right now. And as it turns out, I'm not very good at improvising. Oh, okay, so you could say that Roger represents the sun because he had the whole Joy Boy, Luffy, sun god, inherited will aspect. And conversely, you could say that Whitebeard represented the moon because he had a mustache that looked like the moon. Together, these 2 strongest dude men were the guardians of the sun and the moon. Caretakers, if you will, waiting for the true sun and moon heirs, being Luffy and, well, let's say Momonosuke, to rise up and do something. Which I have to point out because I do like theories and speculation, but with 25 years, you've got enough material to kind of pick and mix and make anything you want sound convincing. So why is this particular idea different? Well, for one, this isn't completely baseless madness because the moon has actually been set up as a location within the One Piece world. Actually, because it's a moon, I really shouldn't say world. The moon has actually been set up as a location within the One Piece universe. It quite literally exists, and not only that, but it exists with buildings and people things that live there and do moon things. And not only that, but the moon is shockingly easily accessible. I mean, the first time we took a trip there was via NL's Arc Maxim, which was a piece of engineering genius. However, this is a case where I would say the solution to this problem was actually over-engineered. Because a legion of mustached cyborgs managed to achieve what NL did, except they used balloons. And they just floated all the way on up to the moon because that is how science works. But in many ways, this makes the moon a location akin to that of Elbaf, a kind of legendary place holding all sorts of profound secrets to be discovered. And sure, not every location in the series needs to have Luffy and the Straw Hats visit it, because there are all sorts of miscellaneous nothing islands that certainly don't command their own arc. But the moon is a pretty big one. In fact, even the very idea that space travel is possible would seem like a huge missed opportunity not to explore through the eyes of our plucky young protagonists, each of which are positively parched for some nourishing adventure. And when I say each, I mean Luffy, and when I say adventure, I mean meat, and when I say hungry, I mean very hungry. But really, if Luffy were to ever find out that going to the moon was a possibility, he would 100% drop everything to take that journey. Just like when he discovered the potential of Skypiea existing. The Straw Hats weren't exactly sure that it existed, let alone if it was possible to get there, but it didn't matter, because if Luffy even gets a brief whiff of this moon soup, he is 100% diving in. Or I guess diving up? Soup really was not the best choice of analogy. However, an alternative does exist, because we have already sort of explored the moon, or at least one of the moons through NL, so we shouldn't discount the idea that he'll come back down from his endless fast and just take a steaming hot info dump on us with everything he found on that moon. I don't know though, it just feels like something we would want to experience for ourselves. Especially Robin, if there's history on that moon, she might be gunning for it harder than Luffy. But at the moment, this whole moon business still sounds like a bit of an awkward side quest. And we're at the point in One Piece where we don't really do that sort of thing anymore. So if we do go to the moon, then we are going to need a very plot relevant reason. We're talking a situation where there is no choice but to make a delightful space journey. And in that regard, may I present to you the classic idea of Laugh Tale, an island in this world that has somehow never been found except by people who can read various rocks, red rocks to be precise. And one solution to this mystery is that Laugh Tale is in space, because none of the emperors nor the world government has ever thought to themselves, why don't we blow up a big balloon and ride to our certain death in outer space? What fools. And this kind of plays into our whole 4-road poneglyphs thing, because if you don't think about it and just enjoy the wacky adventures of Rubber Man and his non-rubber friends, then needing to find 4 of these stones makes perfect sense. However, in theory, you should be able to pinpoint Laugh Tale with 3 red poneglyphs via triangulation. At a base level, the 4th is just superfluous and there for the sake of making that perfect piratey X. Because pirates and treasure and yar and stuff. But that's assuming that Laugh Tale was in a reasonable location, like say, the planet. However, a 4th road poneglyph would be very necessary to determine any location that wasn't on sea level. 3 road poneglyphs gets you to the correct spot, but a 4th may give you information of another dimension, like whether you need to go up or down. And I guess those are the 2 options. And the reason why I kind of dismiss down is because the seafloor is theoretically well explored and even more easily accessible, which currently only leaves me with up. So here's the Luffy adventure proposal. The Straw Hats find all 4 road poneglyphs, Robin deciphers them, but there's a problem. She clearly understands 3, but the 4th it's kind of confusing. There's like a symbol on it that maybe she's never seen before. But the crew go, this is kind of plenty, so they sail to the location marked by the initial 3, at which point they find themselves standing directly under a full moon, and the true meaning of the 4th stone dawns on Robin. And then Luffy becomes a big balloon and everyone rides him into space. I mean, not really, we'd probably need a better mechanism than that. The Going Merry had to be augmented to sail up to Sky Island, so Sunny would likely need something similar to become a spacefaring craft. Luckily, there just so happens to be someone in this here story who has yet to be explored with us. A certain Dr. Vegapunk who comes from a certain island which built the certain cyborgs who rode the certain balloons all the way up to the certain moon. Because Vegapunk, despite the fact that we have never seen him and know nothing about him, what we do know is that his home island is directly connected to all of this cyborg moon shenaniganry, which has the potential of resolving several plot points in a neat little package, as One Piece often does. Now, to cast a critical gaze on the idea, what I don't necessarily like though is setting the climax of the series in space. This is completely subjective, of course, but you would think that the core solution to a pirate adventure probably has something to do with the sea. Along the same lines, it does kind of impede the classic X marks the spot trope, and Oda absolutely absolutely loves pirate tropes. After all, according to him, this is the story of how our classic stereotypical view of pirates came about, which is why we're near certain that Luffy is going to be the first pirate in the series to finally get an eye patch by the end. And space travel in general does clash with anything to do with classical pirates. At the same time though, One Piece has already kind of done everything else. We've encountered or fought secret agents, cyborg zombies, dinosaurs, giants, fishmen, Disney creatures, and really one of the only big fictional groups left to tackle are aliens. So it would not surprise me at all if One Piece did go in this direction, as it is a fanciful, absurdist exploration of pure imagination. I just find it a little bit difficult to think that that exploration will be laugh-tale. And that creates narrative problems, because if we're going into space, it's probably not going to be like a Zoe-length arc. It would be more like a proper Skypiea style endeavor. The crew aren't going to get to the moon and go, there's some nice rocks, and then go home. And it's one of those situations where you really start to realize that there is so much potential within the One Piece universe that honestly is probably unlikely to be reached by the time the series ends, because there is only so much time we can have. And apparently these 3 decades somehow still are not enough. And neither was this video, which is why here's another one. Because there's always more to learn, explore, and experience with this wonderful series, so I look forward to seeing you there.